Welcome to the final part of Section 3, Drunk Driving, a Closer Look. In addition to sanctions imposed as a result of a court conviction, DUI offenders face administrative license actions, suspensions, and revocations by the DMV. These actions are mandatory. The DMV must apply them on violators and independent of any criminal penalties imposed by a court. Table 2 summarizes license suspensions and revocations imposed on DUI drivers.
The administrative license suspension process begins when a driver is cited for DUI. The driver license is taken on the spot by the arresting law enforcement officer if the driver violates the civil per se laws as shown in Table 1, 0.01% for drivers under 21, 0.08% for drivers 21 or over. Licensed offenders are then served with a DMV order of suspension or revocation, which serves as a 30-day license. The suspension or revocation takes effect in 30 days. Within 10 days from the citation date, drivers can request a DMV hearing. At the DMV hearing, only a limited number of issues may be considered. These are whether the officer had reasonable cause to believe the driver was driving a vehicle with an illegally high BAC. The driver was arrested or lawfully detained if age 21 or less. The driver refused a chemical test or a preliminary alcohol screening, PAS, test. The driver was informed that a refusal would result in suspension or revocation. ALS hearings are independent of criminal prosecutions. That is, proceedings and findings in one venue do not affect proceedings and findings in the other. For example, if a defendant's charges are dropped in court, this decision has no effect on the determination made at an ALS hearing. Let's talk about field sobriety tests. Alcohol gaze. An officer tells you to follow his finger with your eyes. A. Early onset. Wavering at 45 degrees indicates 0.10 BAC as a general rule. B. Tracking. Inability to stay on track and follow finger or pencil. C. Extremes. Very early onset. Standing on one foot. Balance. A. Hands at your side. B. 1 foot extended, 30 inches. C. Count by thousands. Walking an imaginary line. A. 10 forward, 9 back, or any combination where suspect must process info and think of 2 separate instructions. B. Heel to toe. C. Turning. Finger counting. A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alternate clapping palm and the back of your hand while counting. The appearance of the person plays a large part in the officer's assessment if the person is under the influence or not. Police officers generally evaluate a driver's physical appearance and condition while he is still seated in the vehicle. This evaluation typically includes 1. Breath odor. 2. Condition of the eyes. 3. Demeanor. 4. Color of face. 5. Dexterity. 6. Speech. 7. Clothing. Let's talk about implied consent. Implied consent law means that you have already said that you would take a test when asked to do so, because the law states that by driving and having a license, you agreed. There are a couple of rules to the chemical test that must be followed by the police if the test is going to be valid and used as evidence against you. The rules of the chemical tests are as follows. A. The officer has 3 hours within the time of the stop to issue you a chemical test. B. You do not have a right to an attorney prior to a chemical test. C. An inability to complete a test is interpreted to be a failure. D. If the officer suspects drugs, then you will be asked to take either a blood or a urine test, and you will not have a choice. blood test. This is the most accurate and one of the only ways you can have a sample saved and have your own independent test made to determine your BAC. Additional testing may be done by independent sources. You have a right to have your own test done.
The consequences of refusing to take a chemical test. Refusing or not completing a chemical test results in the following: penalties by the DMV. First, refusal, loss of license for 1 year. Second refusal, in 10 years, 2-year revocation.
Let's talk about the cost of a drink. If you are convicted of a DUI, these are the fines and fees you will be forced to pay. Ouch. Vehicle towing and storage, $187. Booking, fingerprinting, and photo fee, $156. Driver's license reinstatement fee, $100. Car insurance increase, $2,700. DUI fine, $480. Assessment for the court system, $816. Community service fee, $44. DUI victims fund, $100. Alcohol abuse education fund, $50. DUI classes, $550. DUI victims impact sessions, $20. Time payment charge, $35. Total fees, fines, and assessments, $5,238. If you use an attorney, add $2,000. There is no safe way to drive while under the influence. Even one drink can make you an unsafe driver. The source of this is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Financial costs over 10 years. You probably realize the effects that a DUI conviction can have on your personal and professional life. But have you considered the financial impact? And since a DUI can affect your driving record for 10 years, you need to consider the long-term effects that it can have as well. A DUI conviction can have a detrimental effect on your insurance eligibility and premium costs. With a DUI conviction, you are considered a financial high-risk investment for many insurance companies. As a result, this may affect your ability to carry quality, cost-effective insurance policies, including car, life, and disability insurance. An insurance company accepts money for insurance premiums which may provide you with financial help on a qualifying event at a later date. But the company makes its profit on premiums not paid out. Any company providing insurance coverage counts on not having to pay out claims, and your likelihood of causing a payout is one of the main factors affecting your eligibility and premium costs. With a DUI conviction, many insurance companies automatically place you in a category of likely claim payout, or high risk. Once this happens, the company can protect itself by either raising your premiums, rates can double, triple, or even quadruple, canceling the existing policy, or denying renewal when the policy expires. California requires car insurance for all drivers. It is a way to protect your own assets in the case of a collision. However, once you have been convicted of a DUI, you become a high risk for a claim payout. This is because statistics show that driving under the influence increases the likelihood of being involved in a car crash by 3 times that of a sober driver. Payout on a DUI-related collision can be an extremely expensive occurrence that the insurance company would like to avoid. The company may not be able to cancel an existing policy in midterm, but there are no regulations against non-renewal or premium increases. As a result, your premiums could increase dramatically. While no one is required to carry life insurance, it is a way to protect your assets for your family when you die. You may be surprised to learn that a DUI conviction may raise your life insurance rates. Basically, your life insurance premiums are based on your health condition and your predicted lifespan. Insurance companies use medical and other records, such as your driving record, to assess your current and predicted health status. Any indicator that you may have an alcohol problem can raise your premium rate. This is because alcohol abuse can reduce your lifespan by 10 to 15 years. While a DUI conviction does not necessarily mean that you regularly abuse alcohol, an insurance company may use this as an indicator of a potential problem and classify you as high risk. As a result, you may face issues with denial of coverage, policy cancellation or non-renewal, or premium increases. Then there is personal disability insurance. Much like Social Security disability, private disability insurance is designed to replace your income in the event of an illness or injury which prevents you from working. This insurance can be provided under an employer-sponsored group plan or can be purchased individually. Many persons who are covered under an employer plan also take out individual coverage and are able to draw from both policies in the event of work interruption. However, as with life insurance, your premiums are based on your health condition. Currently, approximately 4% of all disability claims are associated with substance abuse. Therefore, any indicator of potential alcohol abuse, such as a DUI, may cause you issues with denial of coverage, policy cancellation, or non-renewal, or premium increases.
Some party tips. As host of a party, you can be held legally responsible for injuries or damages that occur as a result of the alcohol you have served, even after your guests leave. You can reduce the risk to yourself and your guests by attempting to keep the drinking to a moderate level. Many things can be done to accomplish this by designating a bartender who will keep track of guests who may drink too much and help stop them in time to sober up before getting on the road is one of the best methods. Serving food with drinks and providing non-alcoholic beverages will help people stay sober as well.
Other ideas for socially responsible hosting include: do not overdrink yourself. As the host or hostess, you can stay on top of and avoid potential problems when you are able to think clearly and act quickly. Find out how guests will be going home from your party. Be prepared to take away car keys. Promote the use of designated drivers and encourage guests to leave their cars at home and take public transportation, cabs, or walk. Have cash and phone numbers ready for taxi companies. Some cab companies and other charitable organizations offer free rides to the public on holidays. Watch your local newspaper or television news station for lists of organizations offering the service. When your guests arrive by car, collect their car keys. That way, when they're ready to leave, you can give them a second opinion on whether or not they're sober enough to drive home by themselves. Stop serving alcohol at least 1 hour before the party is over. Make sure coffee, alcohol-free drinks, and food are constantly available. However, coffee and cold showers do not make a person sober. They only moderate alcohol consumption. Only time allows the body to consume and rid itself of alcohol. Plan to deal with any guest who drinks too much. Before the party gets going, ask someone reliable to help you keep things under control. Mix and serve drinks yourself, or designate a bartender instead of having an open bar. Avoid serving doubles and keep shot glasses, jiggers, or self-measuring 1-ounce bottle spouts handy to measure drinks. Guests are less likely to overdrink when standard measures are used. If you serve an alcoholic punch, use a non-carbonated base, such as fruit juice. The body absorbs alcohol faster when mixed with carbonation. Be prepared for overnight guests. Have blankets and sleeping bags ready. The easiest way to keep a drunk off the road is to provide a place to sleep. Always serve food along with alcohol. It is always better to eat while drinking than to drink on an empty stomach. High protein and high carbohydrate foods like cheese, meats, veggies, breads, and light dips are especially good. They taste great and don't make guests as thirsty as salty, sweet, or greasy foods do. When the party's over, if one of your guests has been drinking and should not drive, please do not give back the car keys to prevent driving and avoid harm. Maybe just a little persuasion from you could mean the difference between life and death. Suggest that you or a sober friend drive your alcohol-impaired friend home. The car can always be picked up at another time. Suggest that your impaired friend stay overnight in your home. This may sound inconvenient, but you could be saving your friend's or someone else's life. Have your friend taken home in a taxi. Pay for the ride yourself. It's hard to object to a free ride. Whatever you do, do not give in. Friends do not let friends drink and then drive. In the morning, you will have a safer and maybe an even closer friend. MAD, or Mothers Against Drunk Driving. MAD was founded by a small group of California women in 1980 after a 13-year-old girl was killed by a hit-and-run driver. He had been out of jail on bail for only 2 days for another hit-and-run drunk driving crash and had had 3 previous drunk driving arrests and 2 convictions. He was allowed to plea bargain to vehicular manslaughter. Although he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, the judge allowed the offender to serve time in work camp and later a halfway house. Since 1980, MAD has continued to grow and pursue the efforts initiated by its founders. MAD's national president became an elected position with specific terms of office. 2/3 of MAD's volunteer National Board of Directors is composed of representatives from local chapters. Here are some MAD facts. You don't have to be a mom to be a member of MAD. MAD is made up of moms, dads, young people, and other individuals working to make a difference on our roadways and in our communities. MAD's prevention efforts focus on drunk driving and underage drinking. These efforts have helped save more than 183,000 lives since the organization's founding. MAD is not against responsible alcohol consumption for individuals of the legal drinking age of 21 years and older. Here's the problem. Although alcohol-related traffic deaths have decreased by more than 40% since MAD's founding, drunk driving still remains the nation's most frequently committed violent crime. Statistics show that 15,786 people were killed and over 600,000 others were injured in alcohol-related traffic crashes in 1999. Underage drinking is America's #1 youth drug problem, killing 6.5 times more young people than all other illicit drugs combined. Here's some information about MAD's victim services. MAD is the nation's largest crime victims assistance organization. MAD offers a wide range of free support services and information for victims of impaired driving, in addition to hosting an annual international candlelight vigil of remembrance and hope. 1-800-GET-MAD connects victims to trained staff and volunteers who can provide emotional support and guidance through the criminal justice system. Here's some information about MAD's legislative efforts. Since its founding, MAD has helped pass more than 2,300 anti-drunk driving and underage drinking laws. MAD was instrumental in the passage of the national 21 years old minimum drinking age law in 1984, as well as the 1995 zero tolerance provision of the National Highway Systems Law, making it illegal for those under 21 to drive after consuming alcohol. In 2000, MAD helped pass a federal drunk driving limit of 0.08% blood alcohol concentration and is working to pass 0.08 BAC laws in the 31 states that do not yet have this law. MAD also advocates for passage of a federal constitutional amendment for victims' rights and stricter penalties for repeat and higher risk drunk driving offenders, in addition to other key legislation in states across the country. The following is a true story from a MAD member. The Barneys. Friday, December 20th, 1996, is a date my family and I won't soon forget. It is the night that we were hit head-on by a drunk driver. We were on our way to Wisconsin to celebrate Christmas with our families. Instead, we got to celebrate our lives. We had traveled for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes when our crash happened. We were also only 10 minutes from our first scheduled stop at my parents' house. The man that hit us had been at a company Christmas party and had been drinking for about 4 hours. He was quite drunk. We found out later that he had a blood alcohol content of 0.25, 4 hours after our crash. They estimate that he had a BAC of 0.30 when he hit us. That's 3 times the legal limit. Our children were in the back seat. My husband John was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. We were discussing all of the people we wanted to try to visit in the week we were going to be in Wisconsin. I was watching for deer in the road when I noticed headlights on our side of the road. Everything seemed that it occurred in slow motion, but I know that it only took about 10 seconds before the impact. We were doing about 55 miles per hour, and the drunk driver was doing between 85 and 100 miles per hour. The sound of the crunching metal, breaking glass, and our screams were deafening. If this were not enough, we were then hit a second time by a semi-truck. The truck driver did not even stop to ask if we were okay or if he could help us in any way. A family from St. Cloud, Minnesota witnessed the whole ordeal. Fortunately, they had a cellular phone, and they immediately called 911. The woman in the family came to our car to see if anyone was alive and saw that I was the most conscious. She asked me if she could call anyone for me. Since we were on our way to visit my parents, I called them and told them that we had been in a very bad car accident. My mother didn't believe me until she heard the sirens of the approaching emergency vehicles. My parents then got to the scene before all of them could arrive. The impact had jammed our doors shut, and it took a long time to get us all out. My father had to help cut my children out of their seat belts. Our youngest was alert until this point. When they cut her out, she passed out. Josh, our oldest, was also alert, but he began throwing up shortly after the crash. It had taken about 20 minutes to extract him. Another 15 minutes, and I was freed from the car. My legs had been pinned by the dash, and I couldn't move. My husband, John, took almost 2 hours to remove from the car. The tool that they usually use to cut people out was broken, and they had to get one from another county. The paramedics were quite surprised that John had even survived the crash, let alone the time that he sat in the car unable to move. His jaw was broken in 3 places. The steering wheel struck him directly under his chin. He had chest injuries. The brake pedal went through his right heel, and metal from the car had cut his left leg through all of the muscle and nerves down to the bone. He lost a lot of blood as well. We were all taken to Barron Hospital, which is not a hospital familiar with treating traumatic injuries. The kids were airlifted to Eau Claire Hospital. John was taken to Rice Lake Hospital by an ambulance in the hopes that they could stabilize him. I was left at Barron Hospital to be treated. Josh suffered a perforated intestine and had emergency surgery to remove part of his intestines. Jessica, our youngest, had bleeding on the brain and a bruised lung. She was kept under observation. I just had many bumps and bruises, but definitely felt horrible. John's father and brother met him at the Rice Lake Hospital. From what they now tell me, John didn't look like he was going to make it. Once they got him somewhat stabilized, the doctors made the decision that they needed to transfer him to another hospital, one that was better equipped to deal with all of his injuries. Before they were able to leave Rice Lake, they had to remove him from the ambulance to restabilize him because he had begun bleeding profusely again. When they put him back onto the ambulance, they also had a nurse on board. John was an EMT at the time, and he knew that when a nurse is sent with the ambulance, the prognosis is not good. By the time I got out of the hospital, it was 2 a.m. I didn't know if my kids or husband were still alive. My parents drove me to Eau Claire to be with my family. I was not prepared for what I would see. John was still in the emergency room and had been there for about an hour. The doctors didn't want to risk surgery because they thought they would lose him anyway and did not want to do so on the operating table. He looked horrible, and neither of us knew how the kids were doing. But we still managed to joke with each other, which is typical for us. John did survive surgery, which was done about 9 a.m. Saturday morning. And the kids were doing as well as could be expected. I was in a lot of pain, but I had to make appearances to everyone's room so they would know I was still around. I also had the nurses take the kids to John once he was put into a room. John and the kids were in the ICU for Christmas. Friends and family donated presents and a tree. My best friend in the world sold her prized Tickle Me Elmo doll that she had gotten for her nephew to get a Santa Claus to visit the kids. I'm still amazed that Santa agreed with only a couple of days before Christmas. Jessica was released from the hospital on December 26th, and Josh got out the next day. John was transferred to Ramsey Hospital in St. Paul, now Regents Hospital, on New Year's Eve. I was so relieved to have my children home and John that much closer. He finally was released from the hospital on March 7th, 1997. John missed Christmas, New Year's, and Josh's and my birthday, but he was alive, and that was all that mattered. To date, he has had 8 or 9 surgeries. Hopefully that is all, but we never know. The kids are doing fine now, and John has recently begun walking without any assistance and is looking good. As far as we're concerned, we feel that the drunk driver got off easily. He died almost immediately. He was 22 years old and left behind a wife that was 2 months pregnant with their second child. The other child was a 1-year-old daughter. We do feel for his family and his children. We also have lost so much because of this unfortunate and unnecessary crash. John, as I stated, was an EMT and a volunteer fireman. We don't know if he will ever be able to go back to these jobs, and he absolutely loved them. Financially, we don't know if we will ever recover, but we will survive. And that is the most important thing that we could have hoped and asked for. We have also met some wonderful friends, people that we wouldn't have met had this not happened. We are active with MAD, and hopefully we can make a difference.
Here comes case study number 3. Listen closely, everybody. Pilsner Pete always loves a party. Who doesn't, right? Line starts here. Well, on this one particular night, Pete decides to drive across town to party down with his crazy cousin Earl. And let me tell you, when these guys get together, they really know how to drink each other under the table. But when Earl starts shooting his mouth off, Pete suddenly knew it was time to go. And Pete contended that a 12-ounce glass of beer has the same alcohol content as a 4-ounce glass of wine. And in fact, the same alcohol content as 1.5 ounces of hard liquor, the 40-80 proof kind. Well, Earl wouldn't hear of it. Earl thought it was the size of the drink that mattered, and all drinks contain the same amount of alcohol. Well, our friend Pete was right on target. All 3 of those types of drinks listed above have the same alcohol content. Believe it. But what a wasted night, huh? Pete was only there for 1 hour and had put back 4 beers. So, is Pete okay to drive? And if not, how long should he wait to be safe? Here's the answer. Pete is legally drunk and should not drive. You see, it takes a full hour for your body to get rid of just 1 drink. So, he should wait at the bar for at least 3 more hours. But he should never drive if he still feels intoxicated. Our advice to these guys? Take a cab, boys. Good luck on the Section 3 quiz.